Hello, good morning. Good morning. You notice how I butched it up on that second one. I'm like, hello, good morning. So sometimes when I come here or go to speak elsewhere, I get sort of cornered by the talk title. And I know it's coming. Nick always gets me. He's like, what's your talk title? I'm like, oh, I don't know. So this week it was, what's the talk title? I'm like, summer solstice. And I was actually in my house, painting my kitchen and playing the Smiths. And I thought, there's a light that never goes out. So all of you Smiths fans, it's a shout out to my favorite group. Yeah, there's a light that never goes out. And so it's true about the summer solstice and the light within and the consciousness that we are. And I've had some interesting times looking this week at some consciousness studies as they pertain to language and how we speak and whether what we speak is affecting our consciousness or our consciousness is affecting our language, and how is that affecting our life, and sort of the marriage of philosophy and science and psychology, and I love it. I love that now consciousness studies is sort of the next step in what we call New Thought. It's kind of the marriage of computers and physiology and psychology and philosophy and religion and all sorts of things. And there's a lot of these people who are in these disciplines who apply for grants and money and even go to the universities and petition for funds. And if they had put consciousness in their applications even 10 years ago, they'd have been dismissed outright. So it's very interesting as the rise of consciousness becomes more and more apparent to us in our world. It's also becoming part of our vernacular, part of studies across the board, and also a part of how we need to approach and think about our spirituality. And this has always been a part of what we do. I know yesterday I spent 3 hours talking nonstop to people who came for the introductory class for chaplains in training. And I'm sure it just flew by, didn't it? It just flew by. You rolled your eyes. That's not a good sign. Yeah. So what's great about it is that now there's this happy marriage. 30 years ago, was it 25 years ago? I have my 25th reunion this year, college. So 28, 29 years ago, philosophy class, I was doing a paper on the dialogues of Plato, and I decided to incorporate Freud into this paper, and I really thought it was brilliant that I was bringing psychology, the psychologists and Freudian philosophy into this discussion and rewriting it and submitting it. And long story short, I got an F minus minus. Yes. And I kept this paper because I just thought it was hysterical. I really did. I didn't get probably any other Fs, but I got an F minus minus. Psychology and science has no place in the study of philosophy. That's what my professor wrote. Look at me now. Yes. I love it. I love it. This is as it should be. So this is the thing now, is that it's cool to talk about the two things together. And, that sort of love-hate relationship between science and religion that has existed for thousands of years, and then didn't exist for a while because it became heretical, sort of, to bring anything scientific, because with science comes reason, and reason's sometimes difficult when you're talking about theory, dogmatic theory. So So in consciousness, we refer to light all the time. Look on the bright side. You're brilliant. You're glowing. Lighten up. So these are states of being, states of consciousness, and also the darkness relates directly to it. You know, should you never darken my doorstep again? So how is this light and consciousness affecting us in our lives? And what is our awareness of the words that relates to that consciousness affecting us? And I want to talk just a second, real briefly, because I talked about it yesterday, and I think it's really important to always remember as we're sort of in this study, the work of David Hawkins and the scales of consciousness, and now it's being proven over and over again. He was kind of at the frontier of showing that thoughts are calibrated, consciousness is calibrated, that power, which is as we move toward thoughts of oneness, those thoughts calibrate at a much higher level and are more powerful than the forceful thoughts of anger, which calibrate at a very low level. So what does that mean, really? So it's power versus force. Anything that's forceful must necessarily fall to these things that are powerful. So as I raise my consciousness to a place of love, to a place of unity, to a place of spiritual union, to a place that we're all in here every Sunday, which is so incredible. This consciousness that's shared here on a Sunday, I would love to know what it calibrates at. And he had a system of calibrating or measuring what that is, that basically says that this consciousness must necessarily dominate the lower consciousness levels, which shame, grief, unworthiness, anger, apathy, all of these sort of lower forceful things. And we see this in our world around us. We see sort of the angry issues and the angry crusaders. And what's interesting if you observe it, and you go back in history and look at sort of these things that change unexpectedly, they relate directly to consciousness and thoughts that are in power and thoughts that are in force. Well, I want to wish everyone a happy Pride Month here in June. And I happen to be at a Pride celebration in Cincinnati. And so there are usually, I won't say always, there are usually a group of protesters somewhere, with signs and, quoting scripture and this and that. Walking around. And this year, I had one of the best experiences ever. This was so cool. Okay. So anyway, up here there's, and their signs were like all ragged. I'm like, really, because they're used so often. And that's obviously not stopping us at all, but so they're there with their picket signs, walking around. And there's this young group of men and women. They had to be early 20s. That's young to me, early 20s. And so around these protesters, they had their own set of signs. I loved it. And at the top it said, Matthew 28, 18 to 22, right? And they're marching around with these signs. And on the signs it said, God hates figs. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Matthew 21, 18 to 22, and see, I'm laughing hysterically. None of my friends are getting it. But anyway, so Jesus, in case you didn't know, cursed a fig tree. And I'm going to read you this passage. Early in the morning, as Jesus was on his way back to the city, he was hungry. Seeing a fig tree by the road, he went up to it and found nothing on it except leaves. Then he said to it, "May you never bear fruit again." Immediately the tree withered. When the disciples saw this, they were amazed. "How did the fig tree wither so quickly?" they asked. And Jesus replied, "Truly I tell you, if you have faith and do not doubt, not only can you do what was done to the fig tree, but you can also say to this mountain, 'Go throw yourself into the sea,' and it will be done. If you believe, you will receive whatever you ask for in prayer. Okay, so that's important on several levels. The first part of that is obviously as it relates to this story, and that Jesus, in the eyes of these people, is God. Therefore, God hates figs. So instead of God hating fags, God hates figs. And so they're marching around, the people who have these other signs with the God hates figs thing, and it disarmed these people so much that they went away, right? And this is power versus force in action. It really is, because this is anger and hatred at work, and it was levity and light that these people were bringing to this thing, and they weren't angry at all. They just were marching around, God hates figs, God hates figs, God hates figs. And these people just I just don't think they knew what to do. They just slowly disappeared. Oh, it was so great. I'm like, this is so brilliant. God hates figs. So on the other level here, as we sort of metaphysically interpret this passage, we have Jesus, the way shower, with this elevated consciousness, this calibrated consciousness up at 700, 1,000 incidentally being the most powerful, right? At 700 or 800 of a calibrated consciousness. Coming to a fig tree and cursing it because he's hungry and he's mad at it because it's not producing fruit, right? The disciples would say, what up with that, Jesus? Why are you cursing a fig tree? And he says, whatever you ask for in prayer, you will receive. So that gets you to thinking. You're like, because thoughts are things, right? Thoughts are things, and things produce expressions in our world. And when I was a student in New Thought in the early days, this was a great source of worry for me. Great source of worry. Because then I would go to class and I would ask things like, Reverend Lockard, how does it work? I know the thought, you think the thought, and it goes into the law of mind, and it out pictures on the other side as something in our world, and that's true. And so I need to change my thinking and my positive thoughts so that my life changes, and yes, that's true. And, is it the amount of thought? And he's like, yes, it's like a scale. It's like the balance of the scale. And I'm like thinking to myself, I am so screwed, really. I am so screwed because, it's like that person that says the other person, well, worry is wasteful, worry is useless. And he says, no, worry is useful. It works because 95% of what I worry about doesn't happen. And that's true. 95% of what you worry about doesn't happen. So what is happening then with all these thoughts that are in there? And you're like, if it's a balance, I'm truly, because the monkey mind's always going, the subconscious thought's always going, these things are going to happen. So for every good thought, we're having, this sort of running dialogue that's happening in our head. And if Jesus is showing us that even something used in obviously anger or disgruntlement, that's still producing in our lives, that it's not just things in alignment with love, then I need to really be worried, because then you start to think about, what am I doing? How did I get this cold? What did I do to deserve this? What was I thinking? And the important thing to know is that our thoughts have power when they're seated in a consciousness of love. That the thought on the scale of consciousness that's higher has more power. So one thought in prayer, your thoughts here on Sunday, seated in this consciousness of joy and unity and interbeing, obliterate all of those other millions of thoughts, right? So the guy that annoys you when you drive out of the parking lot. It's these thoughts here, these thoughts in prayer, these thoughts in joy, these thoughts in love have so much power in your life that they obliterate it. So the guy doing the language study is saying that our natural language on a daily basis doesn't drive our state of being. That our natural language is derivative of our state of consciousness. So how I'm speaking is a direct result of how I'm feeling, what my state of being is. So in other words, I hit my, I stub my toe and I say ouch. I don't say ouch and then stub my toe. You feel the pain, you feel whatever it is, you respond in language. However, that is your daily sort of unconscious dialogue. Your daily conscious dialogue drives all behavior and all results in your life. So what does that mean? What I choose to say, what I choose to give my power to, what I choose to add my feeling to, what I choose to add my love to, what I choose to give myself to, produces in my life. And this isn't just a lot of woo-woo, is what I'm trying to get to. This isn't just your new thought woo-woo. This is now over and over and over again being proven in science, right? Being proven in science. So I'm going to give my intention to my God hates fig sign and bringing levity to this situation, and that diffuses what is happening around me. So we have, to sort of continue along that line, just for one more minute, the whole rights campaign for gay marriage or same-sex unions, okay? So there is a lot of energy, obviously, that's expended on the other side of that disposition, that argument. And the same has been the case in human history for other civil rights. Now, the impelling force of the universe is to not be constrained. It's like saying to the universe or the creative process, you can't create there. Universe, this spot's off limits. Obviously, that doesn't work, right? Consciousness is the same. It's going to always expand and grow, and it's expanding and growing always to a place of openness, always to a place of no lack, no limitation, non-constraint. The very word hell itself, to be held in, means to be fenced in or constrained. So it's always moving to a place of freedom. So these ideas, whether they're for the freedom of a man and a man or woman and a woman to be joined in union, this is an idea of freedom up against an idea of constraint. It is a power versus force issue. So when you see the dominoes begin to fall, part of you is surprised. You're like, this is crazy. Now it's Iowa, now it's Kentucky, for God's sakes, where I live. When I moved from Ohio to Kentucky, they said, you can't get redder than that. I mean, you move from Ohio to Kentucky, that'll be the last place on earth. And the next week, I kid you not, Kentucky. And why? Why does that happen? Because it has to. It has to. By the very laws of consciousness, it must fall. By right of consciousness, these things that we perceive as forceful in our world, that we think are truly powerful, are not. They are things of force. Things of power are thoughts of unity, thoughts of love, thoughts of harmony. So that the idea of turn the other cheek isn't turn the other cheek into weakness. It's turn the other cheek into this incredible power that drives the universe. Separation is not natural. It's not natural. Unity, commonality, acceptance, love, this is natural. I was watching a movie last night called The Normal Heart, and there's a line in it where he says, men do not learn to hate. right? Men don't learn to hate. Love is their natural state. Or they do learn to hate, I'm sorry. Men don't learn to love one another. They learn to hate one another. So what is our natural state? What's the natural state of a child? What's the natural state of someone that's in that innocence? I know, I see your sign. I'm coming. I'm rounding the bend. It's a natural state of interbeing. It's a natural state of innocence. It's a natural state of love. It's a natural state of joy. I can't end without talking about my puppies. So for those of you that don't know, I got 2 puppies, Rio and Bello. They're 6 months old. We got them, we were down in Brazil. They're English Cocker Spaniels, Brazilian English Cocker Spaniels. And these animals remind me always of the innocence and joy. And also, I see in them the whole burgeoning concept of self and their awareness and also their consciousness. Because animals are conscious. They're just not conscious that they're conscious necessarily. They know that this is their paw. They don't know that this is their paw, if that makes any sense. But that's a whole other discussion. So anyway, they're aware of themselves, and they're coming into their awareness of themselves, and they're coming into their awareness of each other, and their personalities are beginning to flourish and develop. But what I love most, and I know most of us who have animals love most about our animals, is just that light. They just have a light that is always there. When Joe's away, my partner, I let them sleep in the bed with me. And now they both sleep on my head. One starts here, and I wake up and I'm like, man, I can't move. And they're both like up here on my head. And so as the sun comes up in the morning, they just both get very excited, and they start, licking your face, and they're like, it's just excited, like the day is here, woo! And so I get them up and I take them outside, and then they, I get my coffee, and they come up to me outside, and they're like, oh my God, hi! And I'm thinking to myself, I just was with you all night long, but it's not like that at all. It's like they just saw me for the first time. Hi! So anyway, what I want to leave you with is that level of joy, that level of excitement, that level of surprise and delight in your day and the world around you, and discovery, and just be that, be that puppy. Let your mind wander. Let your mind discover. Let your mind become conscious of yourself like you never have before. Thank you.